The name of the story, The Mirror's Whisper. Some houses aren't inhabited by beings from this world. They are filled with memories. This is the story of the night I found myself there, alone. It started with a letter. No return address, no name, just my name typed across the front in an old typewriter font. The envelope was yellowed with age, edges torn like it had been passed through many hands. I opened it slowly, the paper crackling like brittle bones. Inside was a single sentence. They're not dead. They're just waiting. I've seen a lot during my years as a private investigator. Cults, murders, people who vanish without a trace. But nothing made the hairs on the back of my neck rise like that sentence. It felt like a warning and an invitation. The letter had no signature, but the postmark read York County, Maine. That's about a 5-hour drive from my office in Boston. York County's an old place. Dense forests, fishing towns, people who don't talk to strangers. But nowhere in my files or online did I find anything about a road called Black Hollow. I cleared my calendar, packed my Glock, and hit the road early the next morning. The drive was uneventful. Coastal roads, pine trees, the usual fog rolling off the Atlantic. By the afternoon, I arrived at a small town called Berwick, where I asked around about the road. Most folks just shrugged. One gas station clerk looked up sharply when I asked. That road don't exist anymore, he said. But it used to, way out past the river bend. They closed it off after the accident. Accident. He didn't say more. But later, behind the gas station, I found a rusted, half-fallen signpost. Black Hollow Road, the letters barely visible through the moss. And at the end of it, far from town, deep in the woods, a single house. At the end of Black Hollow Road, where the trees thickened and the sky seemed farther away, I found it, a house standing alone, as if time had forgotten it. Its wooden frame leaned slightly, and the porch steps were rotted through, but it was intact. No path, no lights, no signs of life, yet something about it felt expectant, like it had been waiting for me. I climbed the creaking steps, my hand hovering over the doorknob. The door wasn't locked. It let out a long, tired creak as I pushed it open. The door wasn't locked. It let out a long, tired creak as I pushed it open. Dust floated in the air like it had never been disturbed. The floorboards groaned beneath my boots. The house smelled like damp wood, mold, and something else, something faint, like old perfume. The living room was frozen in time. Old furniture, floral wallpaper peeled at the corners, a fireplace with ashes long cold. A photo frame sat crooked on the mantel. A family of 3. The father's face was scratched out. I stepped deeper into the hallway, each board beneath my feet giving off a tired groan. But then I noticed something strange. There were other steps. Soft, delayed, like a faint echo, but not quite. They didn't bounce off the walls. They followed. Half a second behind mine, perfectly mimicking my rhythm, as if someone was just one breath behind me. I froze mid-step, and the sound froze, too. But not instantly. One last creak, not mine. The silence in that hallway felt unnatural, as if the very air around me was approached it slowly. The wood around the frame bore deep, splintered scratches, long, jagged marks gouged into the grain. At first I thought they were the work of time or animals, but the direction was wrong. The marks weren't trying to get in. They were trying to get out. My hand hesitated on the cold brass knob, then turned. A gust of air rushed up from below, damp and sour, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of rot and something older, something that didn't belong in the world above. I switched on my flashlight. The beam trembled slightly in my hand as I looked down a steep flight of wooden stairs. Dust danced like insects in the light. Each step creaked under my weight, slow and deliberate, as though the house resented my descent. At the bottom, the basement opened into a low, white room of crumbling brick and bare concrete. Old shelves lined the walls, filled with broken jars, rusted tools, and things I didn't dare name. But it was the center of the room that froze me in place. A perfect circle of children's shoes, small, scuffed, arranged with ritualistic care. And in the center of that circle, facing the wall, stood a single wooden chair. I didn't want to know what it faced, but I knew I would have to. I stood there longer than I should have, frozen between instinct and reason. My flashlight wavered, casting long, nervous shadows across the walls, as if the darkness itself recoiled from what lay in the center of the room. The chair hadn't moved, but it felt like it was aware of me. Not the chair itself, no, something that lingered with it, something that remembered being watched, or maybe remembered watching. I took a step forward, then another. The air grew colder, not just cool, wrong. It sank into my skin like ice water, but deeper, like it was moving through my bones. My boots scuffed the concrete, brushing a layer of dust from the circle. I didn't step inside it. I couldn't. My hand reached out, trembling, barely an inch from the back of the chair. And then, a sound, soft, dry, not a breath, not a creak, a whisper, my name. It came from the wall. I froze, arms still outstretched. My heart slammed into my ribs like it was trying to escape. The flashlight flickered once, then steadied. I turned slowly, the beam catching the faded wallpaper and ancient cracks in the brick. Nothing, but I knew what I'd heard. I wasn't alone down here. I backed away from the chair, slowly, careful not to disturb the circle on the floor. The name, it was my name. I didn't imagine it. I couldn't have. The tone was too specific. It wasn't just spoken, it was remembered. Then I heard something shift. A faint scraping sound, like fingernails on stone, from somewhere deeper in the basement. Behind the wall, under the floor, the beam of my flashlight began to fade at the edges. Batteries dying, or something else feeding on the light. I turned, scanning the far corner of the basement. And that's when I saw it. A figure, tall, still, pressed into the farthest wall like it had grown out of it. Skin pale like paper soaked in water. No eyes, no mouth, but it was facing me. And worse, it recognized me. I didn't know how, but I felt it. Its head tilted slightly, unnaturally. The shape of it all wrong. The way it leaned toward me, quiet and steady, like a question waiting to be answered. basement stairs two at a time, heart hammering in my chest like it was trying to break through. But when I reached the top and pushed on the door, it didn't move. The handle turned, the wood groaned, but the door held fast, like something pressed from the other side. Something heavy. I slammed my shoulder into it. Once. Twice. Nothing. I backed away, gasping for air, the cold of the basement still clinging to my skin like sweat. I turned back down the stairs. The basement was no longer the same. The shelves had shifted. The bricks looked older, wetter, and the chair in the circle, gone. The shoes remained. So did the silence. But now it was listening. I told myself to think, to stay rational. Houses didn't move. Basements didn't shift. But the one I was in, this one, was doing both. I scanned the brick walls for another exit. There had to be something. An old coal chute, a crawl space, anything. I found a low wooden door near the far corner, half rotted and hidden behind shelving. I hadn't seen it before. It hadn't been there before. I crouched, pulled it open. Behind it, stairs, more stairs. They led down, not up, not out, down. I hesitated only a second. Staying meant waiting with it. So I descended. The walls here were narrower. Dirt replaced stone. Roots hung like fingers from above, brushing my head as I moved. The smell grew worse. Wet, decayed, old beyond comprehension. And something buzzed faintly in the air, not a sound exactly, but a pressure behind my ears. Like the house was whispering through my bones. At the bottom of the stairs was a door made of iron. Old, rusted, covered in handprints, dozens of them. Small, childlike, all pressing outward. I reached for the handle. It was warm. I turned the handle, and the door creaked open with surprising ease. It didn't resist. It welcomed me. Inside, there was no dust, no cobwebs, no decay, just silence, and walls that pulsed, like they were breathing slowly, in sync with something old and patient. The floor was smooth, black stone, polished like glass. The air shimmered slightly, and I felt as though I had stepped outside of the house, yet deeper into it. The space made no architectural sense. It stretched too far. No ceiling, no corners, just darkness that curved. Then the lights came. Not bulbs, not fire, memories. They flickered into being across the black walls, faint, like silhouettes behind frosted glass. A boy riding a bicycle. A woman's scream in the distance. A badge thrown into a drawer. A face I hadn't seen since childhood, whispering my name. I staggered backward. The visions moved with me. They weren't projections. They were pulled from me. You left him, a voice said behind me. A woman's voice. But not just any voice. The darkness shifted. It didn't walk or crawl. It tilted, like the whole world leaned slightly, and from that angle something slipped through. I felt the air thicken, become warmer, almost alive. The memories on the walls faded, replaced by a slow, rhythmic throb, like a heartbeat, coming from all directions. A whisper brushed my ear. Not words, just breath. Then I saw it, or maybe me. It stepped forward shadow, not a figure of flesh, but a mirror. A tall, upright mirror framed in black iron, covered in hairline cracks that shimmered like veins. But its reflection didn't match mine. It stood where I stood. It breathed when I breathed. But its eyes were wrong. They were too wide, too still, and they blinked after I did. I stepped back. It stayed still. I stepped forward. It smiled. And then it moved without me. One step closer. And I knew in that instant, it didn't want to be me. It wanted me to become it. The mirror stepped again. I didn't move, couldn't. The cracks along its surface deepened, spidering out with soft, cracking sounds, like bones bending. My reflection, that thing pretending to be me, began to smile wider than a mouth should stretch. Its eyes bulged, unblinking, not angry, not cruel, just empty. And in that emptiness, I saw something familiar. Grief, regret, guilt. Memories came rushing back, like ice water down my spine. That night, the call I ignored, the brother I didn't visit, the body I didn't find in time. The house hadn't trapped me. It had invited me, because it knew I was already haunted. The mirror raised its hand. I flinched, but it didn't strike. It pointed. Behind me. I turned. The room had changed again. There, on the black floor, was the chair. The circle of shoes. And in the chair, someone sat down. It was him, my brother, still, pale, watching. He didn't blink, didn't speak, just opened his hand. Inside it, my old badge, rusty, cold, heavy. I stepped forward. My chest ached with pressure. Memory and fear and longing collapsed into one. And I understood. I couldn't leave until I remembered him. Truly, completely, without shame. The mirror waited. The house waited. And so did he. I took the badge. His hand closed the moment I touched it. Slowly, silently, like dust settling after years of waiting. The chair was empty again. The shoes gone. I turned toward the mirror. It didn't move, but it changed. Now, it reflected me. Not the twisted grin, not the cracked eyes. Just me. Tired, hollow, human. I stepped closer, breath shaking. My reflection blinked with me this time. It didn't smile. I raised my hand. So did it. And when our fingertips met the glass, it gave way. Like warm water, I fell forward. There was no pain, no screaming, only weightlessness. And then, light, not sunlight, hospital light, beeping, IV drip, voices, distant, familiar. I was lying in a bed, clean, real. A nurse looked down at me with wide eyes. He's back, she whispered. I blinked. I was back, but not the same. The mirror is gone. But sometimes I feel it behind me, just for a second, when I pass a dark window. And sometimes, in the silence between heartbeats, I hear a voice, my name, not accusing, not angry, just remembering.